All right, I think it's time. Welcome to college. This is Math 1015. My name is Professor Stecker. That's how you say it. Stecker, there's an E in there. I hope everybody can see the screens all right. I'm gonna be writing everything on the screens like this. I like to do that so that I can record everything that I'm saying. So I'm actually, after class every day, I'm gonna take what I'm writing here and just make it into a PDF and post it online so that you can see it if you miss class or if your notes are just not good or whatever. You can always check that out. And I'm also recording a video of everything that I'm doing. There's no camera, but I'm recording this screen and my voice so that if you miss class or whatever, if you want to see something again, I'm going to post these on YouTube and you can go check them out. Be sure to like and subscribe, of course. Let's talk briefly about the syllabus. Briefly or not so briefly, I don't know. And then we can get started. Somebody just came in. Everybody got two things, I hope. Welcome to you all. Welcome especially to the Victorias. For some reason, there are 3 Victorias in this class, and I have 5 Victorias total in all my classes. That's my most Victorias ever. My kids said, that's sus. Which I suppose I agree. But I welcome to the Victorias and the non-Victorias too. Let's talk about the syllabus. So that's this one here. You can see my email address there towards the top. That's the best way to get in touch with me if you have questions about homework or whatever else. I would be happy to talk about them by email or in person, of course, but please send me emails. And I will also be sending you emails to your usual Fairfield email account. So make sure you read those emails. If it's annoying to you to use that account, then have them forwarded somewhere else. That I don't care, but I will occasionally send an email to the whole class or to you individually, and I will expect that you're able to read them. You can see there is my office. Morning. My office is Banno, number 17 on the ground floor, which is below for the first floor. So if you go that way inside this building and then all the way down, that's where my office is. It's a little hard to find, but I'm sure you can handle it. My office hour times are there. This includes every day right after class, so that would be convenient if something isn't making sense to you. Come on down after class and we can talk more in detail about this. It says here my office hours are in my office or by Zoom if you, for whatever reason, don't want to come to my office. If you prefer to do it that way, then we can do it that way. I'm gonna, when I'm sitting in my office, I will have my Zoom turned on also, so if you don't have to make an appointment or anything, just show up at this link. If for some reason I'm not there, it's probably because I forgot to turn it on, but I get a notification if you show up, so just wait a moment and I will probably show up. All right, the final exam date and time is there, so put that on your calendar. Be there. And the class website is written there, and that's also what this QR code goes to. You will want to go there every so often, every week at least, because that's where I'm going to post the homework assignments. I'm not putting them on Blackboard, although if you go to Blackboard, you'll just see a link to this site. It's just a little easier for me to handle than using Blackboard, so I'm going to do it that way. All right. Any questions about the very basic stuff? Okay, let's talk about what's in the course. Well, you can read the course description here, which doesn't really say much. That I just copied from the university description of the course. Basically, this is a course about various ideas in mathematics at an elementary level. That's what it says. What that means, as far as I'm concerned, this class can be about anything that I want. It's just sort of interesting mathematical ideas. It is not meant to be a continuation of any stuff that you had in high school. This other thing that I handed out is a list of topics. probably you've never heard of any of those things. At least that you shouldn't feel badly. That's the idea. So I am not intending to like talk about factoring polynomials or something like that. The things that you talked about in high school were mostly like geared towards eventually getting you to take calculus. That's like the usual sort of end point, alleged goal of high school math curriculum, even though not everybody takes calculus in high school. And like in life in general, ordinary people don't use calculus in real life. So if you never learned calculus, you are not like missing out on something in as a life skill necessarily. So this class is not trying to do the same thing. This is probably the last math class you'll ever take, or maybe you'll take 2 math classes, but the intention for this course is this is a math class for people who are not going to be majors in mathematical fields and are likely not going to like do math otherwise after this class. So if this is going to be like the last math class you ever take, it ought to be, in my opinion, something interesting, not just something like more of the same stuff. So that's my kind of philosophy behind this class. I'll say a little bit more about my vision for the class, but maybe we'll just go through the details on the syllabus here. Something to talk about is this mastery-based assessment. This is weird, so pay attention. The course is graded based on topic mastery. It says the course material has been broken down into about 30 different specific objectives, and you can see them on the list over here. Like I said, you should not necessarily know what any of this stuff means at this point. If you have heard of some of these before, then that's great, but it's not. I don't expect that any of you have. And as we go throughout the class, you will be checking off these items on the list. You can see for each item, you can either get 1 point or 2 points on it, depending on like basically these are going to appear on our tests. So it says in the second paragraph here, students demonstrate their mastery of each objective by correctly answering exam questions, each of which is clearly labeled as assessing one specific objective. So when we take our tests, and there's going to be 4 tests during the semester, which is kind of a lot, but you'll see why. Each question on the test will be specifically marked as one of these numbers on the list. And if you get that question right, you get 2 points. If you get that question kind of right, you get 1 point. And if you're just like totally out of nowhere, you get 0 points on it. And so, for example, I have mine on here. This one here. So, like maybe after the first test, based on how you did the first test, of course, not all of these are going to be on the first test because we're not going to get that far, but maybe we'll do like the first 8 on the first test. And based on how you scored, you might get like these checks on these ones, right? Maybe I got 0 on number 5, and maybe I got 1 on that one, right? This is the idea. So after you take one of the tests, I'll hand back your grades, although you don't really get a grade on the test. It's not like you get a 75%. You just get some of these checks every time you take a test. All right, this is the idea. Yeah.
So what is going into like the grade book, I guess is my question.
So yeah, like eventually you do get a grade for the whole class.
Right.
That is achieved by taking an average of all of these scores. So if you get all the 2s, that's 100%.
So it'll say like half mastered or like mastered, or like what'll it say? I guess.
I'm not sure what you mean by say. If you ask,
you know how like in high school, like it would be like, oh, like you have an A in this class.
Yeah, right. So at any point you could figure out what your average is.
Okay.
Here by just adding up these numbers, right? And that, if you like, is your grade. All right. So it says. At the end of the second paragraph there, once an objective is mastered, the student does not need to answer any more questions addressing that objective. So the point of doing it this way, I don't know if this seems like strange and intimidating to you. This is actually good. I think this is a system that everybody, provided that you understand what I'm talking about, you will think that this is a good system. After you take the first test, you might get some checks like this. When you take the second test, all of these questions will appear again. If you have already gotten 2 points on them, you don't have to do them again because you've already mastered those topics. But if you fail to get the 2 points on those, you will have a second opportunity to do all of them again. And of course, you don't have to do all of them again. You do the ones that you didn't get your mastery. So maybe after the second test, I get some more checks, and maybe, now I have like this one here and this one here, and maybe I only got that one and that one, right? And so on. So by the time we get to the end of the course, you will have had several opportunities to get more and more check marks on each of the questions, all right? If you do badly on the first test, so what this means is if you do badly on the first test, you have not screwed your grade, all right? Like the point of this system is that in a typical traditionally graded math class, if you say get 0 questions right on the first test, even if you get 100% on the next test, your average is still 50%, which you screwed your average for the whole thing, all right? The purpose of this system is that doesn't happen in this system. If for some reason you do terribly on the first test, but you somehow get your act together and do great on the second test, your poor performance on the first test has no effect on your overall average, right? Your average, you can, if you want to, calculate your average at any point, but all that matters is how it looks at the end, right? And this is actually, I hope that sounds good to everybody. This is actually very much in line with sort of what I care about as the professor of this class. What I want is for you, by the end of the semester, to have learned all of these things. Now, if you fail to learn them for a couple months, but eventually you do learn them, that's totally fine with me. And in fact, that is the usual way that we learn stuff, including math. It's like by doing it wrong a few times and eventually doing it right. And I don't want to penalize you for doing it wrong a few times. As long as you eventually do it right, that's all I care about, all right? That's the idea behind this system. Any questions about that? I hope that this sounds good to you. So we are going to have 4 tests, which, like I said, is kind of a lot, but I want to give you a lot of chances. Like actually taking more and more tests is actually good for you all because it just means you have more and more chances. And if you do badly, I mean, it's bad to do badly, but it doesn't screw your grade. It just means you're going to have to do better in the future. All right. It says, so I'm just reading some more on here. Like I just said, there's no penalty if a student answers a question incorrectly, but this objective will remain unmastered, and you can master that objective by correctly answering questions on later exams. All right? And like I said, every test that we take is going to include all of the questions that we've covered so far. So maybe the first test will have these 8, maybe the next test will have like down to number 15 or something like that. All right? And probably the test is not long enough for you to actually do all 15, but the idea is you will have already gotten some of them on the first test, and then you're going to have some time to do the old ones on the next one. All right. I think maybe that's all I need to say about that. Any questions about that? I know this is weird, and if you're a little confused about it, I think you'll get the idea. If not, I'm happy to talk in more detail about it. If you turn a page, you'll see the dates for our exams. Like I said, there's going to be 4 of them, and they're just like during ordinary class time. And the last one, the 4th one, is on the last day of class. It says if you'll be missing an exam and you want to make it up, you must tell the professor in advance. We can work something out, but don't just like not show up and then say, oh, I didn't show up. What do I do now? The answer is, well, I don't know what the answer is, but I don't like it. It says if you simply do not show up to an exam, you will probably not be able to make it up. I'll just give you a 0, I suppose, although, again, it doesn't screw your grade necessarily. It just means you didn't get any of those check marks like everybody else did. All those other Victorias got the checks and you didn't. All right? It says here, students do not receive a grade, in quotes, for a completed exam. Like I said, you don't really get a grade on the test. You just get some of the checks. And at the very end of the exam saying, students will not use calculators or any other electronic gadgetry during exams. As you'll see, this class is not really about that. There aren't a lot of things that we're going to be doing that you would want to use a calculator for or be able to use a calculator for. So, no calculators. All right, the final exam, the final exam is at the usual final exam time. The final exam, just like the rules at the university, all final exams last for 3 hours, so it's a super long time. But the final exam for this class is not going to be anything special. It's just going to be one more chance for you to do all of these check marks. All right. What that means is, so we have a test in class on the last day of class. after that one, you might have already gotten full credit on all the questions, and if that's the case, then you don't need to come to the final exam because there's nothing more that you can do. The final exam is just one last chance for you to get the check marks, all right? Realistically speaking, you're probably not going to get all of them perfectly checked off by the end, but maybe you'll have like 2 or 3 left over, and so you'll come to the final exam and only do those 2 or 3. So almost nobody will actually be trying to do every question on the final exam. That if you are in that situation, it's because you were lazy the rest of the semester or something. If you don't have full credit on anything. All right, that's the final exam. Okay, I hope that this system sounds good to you. There is also homework. So we're going to have homework each week. Like I said, it's going to be posted at the class website each week. Due on Wednesday, not including tomorrow, just because we haven't done anything yet. The homework is going to be graded in the traditional way. So you do every question on the homework, and I just give you a grade on each assignment, and then those grades are averaged together at the end. So this business is only for the tests. The homework is a much more traditional kind of, you write down the answers and I give you points based on if they are correct or not. It says, the homework is graded in the traditional way. Due every Wednesday night at 11:59 p.m. So you don't have to, I'm not going to be collecting the homeworks during class on Wednesday. And the idea is, I know that like realistically, if I say the homework's due on Wednesday, you're probably going to do it on Tuesday night, which is fine with me. If you do it on Tuesday night and there are like a few things that don't quite make sense to you, feel free to come in on class on Wednesday and ask questions. I would be happy to help out, even though that's the due date. It's due Wednesday night, so you can do it. You can still work on it on Wednesday. That's the idea. All right. It says late homeworks without excuse will lose 1/3 credit for each calendar day. So do it. If it's late, that's okay. But hand it in as soon as possible after the due date. All right. If you're like miss class on some day, you still got to hand in the homework on that day, unless something catastrophic is going on. As always, you can let me know. But I will expect you to do the homework whether or not you're present in class on that day. All right. The grading breakdown you can see is very simple. It's just this checklist is 75% of your grade, and then the homeworks are 25% of your grade, and I average them all together. If this is too complicated for you to figure out on your own, I would be happy to tell you at any point, if you're wondering like what's my grade at this point, although those can be a little misleading. Like right now, your grade is all 0% because you have no checks on the big list. You haven't done any homework either. But I will try my best to give you some idea of how your grade is looking if you are ever unsure. All right. Any thoughts about that? Okay, the remaining stuff here is just kind of ordinary stuff. There's a little bit about, should I show my work? When you're doing the homework, the answer is yes, you should show your work. Don't just tell me the answer. I already know the answer. The whole purpose of you doing the homework and showing it to me is for you to demonstrate that you know how to get the answer, not just what the answer is. And for the kind of stuff that we're going to be doing here, almost none of the homework problems are things that you could do in your head. So, right? Show me what you did, all right? There's also a little something about attendance. Attendance is not part of your grade, as you noticed. So there's no like penalty to your grade for missing class. Although I say students who miss class are 100% responsible for making sure all assignments are still completed on schedule. And like I said before, if you're having some kind of personal disaster, let me know and we can work something out. But otherwise, I will expect you to be responsible about missing class. If you have to miss class or whatever, that's fine with me. But it's on you to make sure that you're keeping up with things. And I'm trying to do everything that I can to help you keep up. And I'm happy to talk about it if what I'm doing already is not good enough. A little thing about office hours. It says the professor regards visits to office hours as part of the instruction for the course. What I mean by this is I hope that any of you, whether you're like doing terribly or doing fine in the class, I hope that you would feel free to come down and chat with me every so often about the class. It's not required, certainly, but it's not something that is meant to be like a really big deal. I know, like, my own experience when I was in high school, it was like I never wanted to talk to my teachers outside of class. Not because I didn't like them, but because, like, this was a sign that something was going wrong in my life if I had to talk to them. I hope that you don't have that attitude, and I think the way that I do business, and this is probably true of everybody at Fairfield here, like, I expect that certainly if you are doing badly, I definitely would expect you to come and talk to me every so often. But even if you're not, this is just an ordinary part of how you are meant to interact with me. It's totally fine if you don't want to talk to me, but I hope that you would feel free to talk to me if you think it'd be a good idea. All right, and I just put a little note about the counseling services. Did you know there are free counseling services? I say free, like, you pay for everything here in some way, but it's included in the whole package is what I'm trying to say. In these United States of America, free counseling services, something to check out if you're interested. I have found counseling to be helpful from time to time in my life. Sometimes my wife says, maybe you should talk to Stacy about that. So maybe you should talk to Stacy too. All right. Any questions about all of that? I have one more sort of business matter to discuss, and that is, I kind of skipped over it, a little something about online submission. It says no assignments are going to be submitted on paper. All of your work will be submitted online at this website, Gradescope. And I hope that you got an email last night from Gradescope about how to use your account. I would like, just to make sure that everybody is with it, I would like to just try out right now a little sort of how to use Gradescope. It's really easy to do. You should do this on your phone. So the idea is you're going to do your homework as you would ordinarily do math homework, just by writing on paper. You can type it, but for what we're doing in this class, you will find it very annoying to try to type some of this stuff up. So you're going to write all of your homework out on paper, and then you just take pictures with your phone and send it into Gradescope like that. So what I would like, I just want to take a few minutes to make sure that everybody is getting along with Gradescope right now. If you log in, so find the email they sent you last night and use that to log yourself into Gradescope. There is an app, but you can do it just through your phone browser. You'll find, once you log in, there's a first assignment. It's called the dummy assignment, and your job is just to write something interesting about yourself. This is your first assignment. You're not going to type this in anywhere. You should write this down, like, on a piece of paper with a pencil, and then take a picture of it. This is how you're going to send all of your assignments into Gradescope. All right, can we just take a few minutes? I'm going to sort of walk around and make sure everybody is getting along okay with the Gradescope. I just want to make sure that it's working, just so that when our first, like, real homework assignment happens, everybody will know what's up. All right, try it out. I'll give you a few moments. If you're having some kind of disaster, we can work it out later, but hopefully this will be good enough. Oh, there's one thing I meant to say, which may be relevant. This checklist, I would like you not to write on it, other than, like, putting the checks on there. That's because during our tests, you're going to bring this with you to kind of, so that you can remember which ones you need to answer on the test. So don't write, like, notes on that. Getting anywhere? Yeah. Okay. Still thinking?
Is it the dummy assignment?
Yes, that's the one. Doing okay?
Am I supposed to write it on
Were you able to read the email?
Yeah, I can read the email. It's just
The browser? Are you using the You could try turning the Wi-Fi off. I find the Wi-Fi isn't great. Okay. I think you'll have an easier time.
Yeah, I just know. I can see it in my computer too.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like thinking about it.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Everything working over here? Doing all right? Doing okay? Yeah. Is it working?
Yeah, I got it now.
Working for you?
Yeah, it's just a little.
You might be better off without using the Wi-Fi. I don't know.
I don't have classes Mondays and but tomorrow yeah, it's over 5 hours.
I'll give you 2 more minutes and then we can get on with it.
It's just not loading.
Yeah. It might work better if you turn your Wi-Fi off. Just use your. Yeah.
Oh. Turn it off.
No? If you. Oh, it's probably just slow connection. Yeah, you don't need that. Okay, get the app. I think so. Yeah. People are saying that the Wi-Fi is slow, that maybe. You might have better luck without the Wi-Fi, just using your phone signal. I don't know. We'll just wait. All right, I think folks are doing okay. Maybe some people having slow connections, but hopefully it'll work out. So this is the way that you're going to submit all your homeworks, and also this is the way that you're going to submit your test answers. So when we take tests, you should bring your phone, and after you finish doing your test, you do what we just did to send it in. This is, I started doing this during COVID just because I didn't want your like diseased papers, but actually I find that it's a nice system anyway. It's a little easier for me to handle grading them. I don't have to like carry around stacks of papers, and it's also as soon as I grade it, you can see the results. So inside of Gradescope, you know, I will like give you grades in there, but I can also write some stuff about why this or that is not correct or something. So it's a good system. I hope that it's not too much of a hassle for you to send your stuff in through there. All right. If you did have like serious problems with your Gradescope account, or if it's ever not working, please let me know, and I'll try and help out with that. Okay. I wanted to give you a little bit more of my sort of vision for this course, and then maybe we'll get down to a little bit of business. So my vision for this course, I like to think of this in terms of, it's kind of inspired by an old romantic comedy sort of chick flick from the 90s. I don't know if you're familiar with this, a movie called She's All That. This is something that I saw, I guess, like when it was new. My sister was watching it on TV, and I happened to be like in the area, and I was forced to take it in. The She's All That is about, I will tell you the plot of this movie. It's about this kind of like nerdy girl in high school and the jock kid who everybody's into, and the jock kid, like as a joke, as a dare from his jock bro friends, the jock kid asks out the nerdy girl to go to the prom with him. And to everyone's surprise, the nerdy girl doesn't realize this is a joke on her. She says yes, and the jock wasn't really expecting that, but they're going to go to the prom together. And in preparing for the prom, the nerdy girl like hangs out with her cool aunt, and they like go downtown to get this makeover, which basically consists of her like taking her glasses off and taking her hair down, and suddenly she's like this sexy hot girl. And they go to the prom, and the jock sees her, and he's like, "Whoa, I didn't know you were a hot girl when you take your glasses off." And she's like, "Yeah, I am." And then they like after the prom, they really are like together, right? And so everything's happy, and then like 15 minutes before the end of the movie, she finds out that this whole thing was meant to be a joke, and she's like, "Oh, you never really liked me anyway." And he's like, No, I really do like you," and she doesn't believe him. And then eventually, of course, like he, I don't know, talks to her with some kind of inspirational music in the background, and he's like, "No, like, yeah, it was a joke at the first, and I'm really sorry about that. But like now that I've gotten to know you, I realize that like you really are a great person. It's not just because you took your glasses off. Like, I really like you for who you are, not because you're hot now." And then at the end of the movie, like they're together, everybody's happy, and she kind of like puts her glasses back on, but she's still kind of hot, and like he understands that like even when she wears her glasses, he still appreciates her as a person, right? So this is my basic vision for what I hope that this class is like concerning your appreciation of mathematics. All right. So in the analogy, just to clarify, mathematics is like the girl in the story. All right. So my idea is to kind of maybe present some sort of a makeover for your impression of mathematics. I don't know if you like math already. That's great. I expect that a lot of you are not, real mathematics enthusiasts. That's kind of the sort of folks that this course is meant for. For you, my goal is to kind of present the stuff that we're talking about, and hopefully with the intention of making you able to see the beauty of what we're discussing. Now, I don't expect you all to become career mathematicians, and I'm not trying to dress things up in an artificial way. So I'm not going to lie to you about what math is really like. But to me, like, what interests me about math is that mathematics is the most beautiful thing in the world that I've ever seen. Like, that's what I'm interested about math. Myself, I'm not terribly good with numbers. Like, adding and multiplying numbers in my head is not something that I'm good at. I'm not like super bad at it, but I'm not any better than any of you would be. And for that reason, when I was a kid, nobody ever thought that I was good at math when I was a kid, because I wasn't really good at adding and multiplying, which is what math is when you're a kid. But once when I got to college, I thought maybe I was going to major in. I was thinking about English or music or physics, and I took some math classes because I wanted to take these physics classes. But I realized that actually I am really good at math. It's just like I didn't really know what math was when I was a kid. I think I thought that it was just about like adding and multiplying. Which when you're a kid, that kind of is what it's about, but that's not what real math is about. So my goal here is to give you a flavor or give you an impression of what I think is interesting about mathematics, and it's not going to be a lot of like adding and multiplying numbers. And then my hope for you by the end is that you will be able to say, maybe you're not like going to be searching for mathematical beauty for your whole life, but at least I hope that you'll be able to say, like, yeah, I kind of get it. Like, I don't know if this is for me or not, but at least like I can see the appeal. That's my goal for this class. All right, so maybe I'll tell you what sort of will not be in this class. I already mentioned something like this, but we're not going to be dealing with a lot of numbers or equations or like formulas that you have to memorize. I believe there is going to be one formula that I will ask you to memorize for one of these topics on the list. There are, I don't think, any equations. We will be adding numbers every so often, but not really multiplying anything. And certainly nothing more sophisticated than that as far as the kinds of math that you are likely to learn in high school. There's not going to be a lot of geometry or like calculations of things. This is why I said you're not going to use calculators on the tests, because it's just not the kind of stuff that we're talking about. We're also not going to be talking about like practical mathematics that you're going to be using in your everyday life. To me, what I want to include in this class is just things that are interesting. So unfortunately, it means they're interesting to me. I hope that they're also going to be interesting to all of you. I intend for them to be interesting to all of us. So not the kind of thing that is going to help you balance your checkbook. Like, to be honest, probably all of the math that you are going to use in your ordinary life, you probably learned when you were like in elementary school. Like adding and multiplying, super useful. I like to bake, and so I sometimes have to add and multiply with fractions. But I learned that when I was a little kid, right? Like, that kind of stuff is super useful. Probably all the math you learned in high school is not kind of going to be the kind of stuff that you use in your everyday life. So that is not the standard for what goes in this class. It's not meant to be useful in your everyday life. It's meant to be interesting and beautiful. And I hope to try to explain what is interesting and beautiful about any of these topics. So if you're ever wondering to yourself, like, why are we even talking about this? Feel free to ask me. Don't ask me, when am I ever going to use this? I mean, you can, and I will say you're not ever going to use this. You should instead ask me, like, why is this interesting? Or why is this beautiful? And I would be happy to try to explain better why these are interesting things. All right? Any comments? There's not a lot to comment about. The hallmark of the ideas that we're going to be talking about are things that seem simple, but actually are more complicated when you think about them carefully. That's the kind of character of a lot of what we're going to talk about. And that is one of the things that mathematicians identify as beautiful about mathematics. That something can seem to be very simple on the surface, but actually when you think more about it on a deeper level, it becomes very complicated. So maybe we've only got 10 minutes left here, but maybe we can start talking about our first thing on the list here. You can see on the big list there are topics that are grouped into basically 5 categories, and these 5 categories have essentially nothing to do with each other. I mean, they're meant to be independent sort of 5 different units, although there are some connections between them. So our first big unit is about ranked voting. So we're going to talk about voting. Just a little pro tip. I see some of you have computers, although, like I said before, it's going to be a real pain to type this stuff out that we're talking about. Maybe not today, but in the future, you can do whatever you want, but I would strongly urge you to take notes on paper, because almost all the topics that we discuss involve drawing like cute little diagrams, which are going to be impossible to type up. At least at the proper speed. So I would suggest you get some paper and pencil to take notes on. For today, of course, it's no big deal. Voting is what we're going to talk about. I hope that you can read my handwriting. That's not very nicely written. I'm going to feel free to interrupt me at any time and ask me, what does that say? All right. So voting is something that is very ordinary, especially here in the land of the free. Voting is something that even like little kids know what voting is and how it works. But this is one of those things that I was saying. It seems simple on the surface, but when you look closely at it, there's actually a lot to it, and there's a lot that you realize that it's actually not so simple as it first seemed. Maybe I will just say, I do not intend to talk about politics in this class. I want to talk about the mathematics of voting. Now, there are some things that we're going to talk about which are also discussed in politics, and so it may seem from time to time that I'm talking about sort of like hot political issues. Like you can see, one of our topics is gerrymandering, which is kind of a hot political issue. I don't know if you're interested in politics or whatever. You'll also see on the list something called ranked choice voting, which is another kind of hot political issue. I do not intend to convince you of any particular political point of view. I have my own political opinions, but I think it's wildly inappropriate for me to just sort of try and teach you my political opinions as if that's what the class is about. So if you ever feel like I'm doing that, feel free to object, and I will apologize. This is not my intention. But we are going to talk about the mathematics of voting and the mathematical angles on a lot of these topics. And it may sound like I'm talking about politics. I'm not trying to talk about politics. Anyway, so voting is a simple thing. And let me just talk about the idea here, right? The very basic idea behind voting, at least as we do it mostly in the United States. The very basic idea is everybody votes. Let's just say we're voting like for the president, or we're voting just to elect a person to something, all right? Everybody votes for their favorite person or whatever favorite. Let's just say choice. You know, we might be voting on more ordinary things like which restaurant are we going to go to for dinner or something like that. People do this all the time. Everybody votes for their favorite choice. You count them up. Count them up. These are like the steps to voting, all right? And then the most votes is the winner, right? This is what I'm talking about when I say voting. I mean, I hope that everybody, this is what you thought I meant when I said we're going to talk about voting. This is actually one specific way to do voting. There's other like weirder systems that you could use when you're trying to vote for something, but this is the standard system that everybody thinks of when I say we're going to talk about voting. When you do it in this way, there's a specific name for that, just because there are other kinds of voting. But this is called, this basic setup here, this is called the plurality system. This is the fancy word for what everybody thinks of when I say we're going to talk about voting. The plurality system. It means everybody makes one choice, their favorite choice, and then we just add up all the votes, and whoever got the most votes is the winner, all right? This is called the plurality system. This is what everybody, at least in America, thinks about when you say we're going to talk about voting. This is the system that, well, we're going to talk about, actually, when you do this in practice, there are some undesirable things about the way this works out in practice. So the plurality system, this often doesn't work very well. All right, there are some downsides to doing voting in this way. I also don't want to give you the impression that I am like a democracy hater, because I am actually going to be, I got some hot takes about voting. These are not my own personal hot takes. These are like mathematical takes that actually everybody agrees on. If you think about this in detail mathematically, this system, the plurality system, often doesn't work very well in sort of our society. So one downside, I will say this is a big downside to the plurality system. This is something that more or less everybody knows this when you go to vote about something. Pretty much everybody knows this, and that is that if you vote for someone who's not going to be the winner, if you vote for someone who isn't going to win, basically your vote doesn't count for anything. Your vote ends up being useless. What I mean is something like, let's say we're having a presidential election, and you're like, oh, who are you going to vote for, Trump or Biden? And I say, you know what, actually, I think my mom would be a great president, so I'm going to vote for my mom. Your response would be, that's stupid, your mom is not going to win, because your mom is not Trump or Biden, all right? This is something that basically everybody knows, but this is a true fact about the way that this system works. If you vote for someone who is not a real contender, then you might as well not be voting. And people even say in this situation, if you vote for your mom, you're just throwing your vote away because your mom is not going to win. And so there's no point in even voting for her. All right? If you vote for someone who isn't going to win, your vote ends up being useless. Like I said, this is something that basically everybody understands. That's why none of you ever vote for your mom, unless your mom is Trump or Biden. Everybody knows this, and most of the time people don't even really think about this as a problem. It's just like this, well, that's just how it is. How it is, though, this has big effects on our political system and even like on our society. So what this means, these are some like effects of this. First of all, and this is the most obvious effect, the two parties become invincible, right? It is a fact that when we vote for the president, for example, there's going to be a Republican and a Democrat. And if you're not voting for one of those two, you might as well not be voting at all. Your vote, if you want to vote for your mom or someone on, like if you go to vote, there are other people on the ballot in other parties. But essentially, like statistically speaking, nobody is voting for them. And why is nobody voting for those other people? One reason might be because nobody actually likes them. But actually another reason might be because everybody knows that those people are not going to win, and that's why nobody votes for them. Even if everybody likes them. Like it could be that one of those other no-name people, actually it could be that everybody might really like them, but nobody's going to vote for them, all right? It makes the two parties invincible in a system like this. It makes it impossible for a third contender to come along and have any chance because nobody's going to vote for them. This has serious effects on our society, right? What else? I will say, this is something that I just mentioned, but I will write it down. Support for, let's say, outsiders seems artificially low. What I mean is, like, after the election, you know, I might count up the votes and say, like, oh man, only 3 people voted for my mom. I guess nobody likes my mom. That's not true. I mean, maybe that's true, but the reason nobody voted for my mom is because they knew that she wasn't going to win. Actually, the fact that when you look at the results of an election, how popular really is my mom in the American public, you can't tell that by looking at the results of the election. The fact that nobody voted for her doesn't actually mean that they don't like her. It means that they know that they shouldn't be voting for her, and that's why they didn't vote for her. So support for outsiders seems artificially low. Like if you try to say to somebody, oh, there's a problem because we have the 2-party system, they might say to you, well, nobody ever votes for those other people, so who cares about them? Nobody likes them anyway. That's not why nobody votes for them. I mean, maybe it is. It's just you can't tell, right? So the support for the outsiders, it seems low, but maybe it's not actually as low as it seems because people have other reasons not to vote for them. And last thing, and this is, I guess it's time to go. This is the last thing I'll say. It makes all politicians always claim they're winning. This, I hate this about American politics. A politician will never say, you know what, I think we're not going to win this election. Why would they never say that? It's because if they say, you know, I think I'm going to lose, the signal to all the voters is, I better not vote for that guy because he's going to lose. Because we already know that you should not vote for a loser in our system, all right? You can see this very clearly with our current president. He always says that he's winning everything. And if anybody says, like, oh, we did this poll, it shows that people don't actually like you, he says, well, that's a fake poll. Or if they do a poll and they say, oh, the people like you, he says, yeah, see, the poll said so, they like me. It is a bad, I'm not trying to cast aspersions on Mr. Trump, but one of the reasons why this is a strategy that works in America, to always claim that you're winning, because nobody wants to vote for a loser, all right? All right, we're going to talk more about this next time. If you got any extra questions or issues with the grade scope or whatever, let me know.